Hello, everyone, and welcome to this workshop entitled Cutting Your University's Ties to Nuclear Weapons. I will be your facilitator for today, and my name is Christian Shabanu of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. I am proud to introduce our two presenters for today. First one shall be Alicia Sanders-Zacher, who is the Policy and Research Coordinator of the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. She directs and coordinates research on the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the humanitarian impact of nuclear weapons, and general nuclear weapons policy. Previously, she was a researcher at the Arms Control Association and at the Brookings Institution. She has published over 100 news articles, editorials, and reports on nuclear weapons, including in The Guardian, The Baltimore Sun, Arms Control Today, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, and the National Interest. She has also provided expert analysis for several newspapers and radio programs, including the Korea Times and Deutsche Welle DW Radio. She holds a BA in International Security from Tufts University, as well as a certificate of completion in International Nuclear Safeguards Policy from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. The second speaker will be Sanjani Patel, who is a junior at Fordham University, studying political science and international studies with a minor in Italian. Sanjani interns at the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. She creates projects involving education and awareness about nuclear disarmament. She works towards furthering youth involvement in nuclear disarmament advocacy and hopes to empower young people to take a stand and use their voice in humanitarian affairs.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. It's been really great to hear a bit from you, and I hope we can make this as interactive as possible. I am gonna just do kind of a quick presentation here to tell those who might not already be familiar with it about this report that ICAN did about university involvement in the United States with nuclear weapons. So I'll do kind of a quick presentation. We'll have Sajani talk about working with students and speak from her own experience as a student. And then hopefully we'll still have some time left for everybody to be able to exchange and kind of plan next steps. So starting off, I tried to kind of add some polls in here. And I'm wondering if I have Alex here to help me put up the polls, or if I should do that myself. Great, okay, awesome. So yeah, this is our first poll. Can everyone see this on their screen? So yeah, just go ahead and answer just who you are. It was great to have the introductions, but just so we kind of get a sense of where people are coming from. I'll just give you a little bit longer. Great, I see a lot of people voting. All right, great, everyone's voted. Can we share the results, Alex? Oh, can everyone see? Great, great. Okay, so I see we've got a number of students, a number of people near universities. Everyone's connected to universities, so that's great, and a couple of professors here. So that's, yeah, really great to know where everyone's at. So now these are kind of in our report, we looked at a number of universities that have links essentially to the US nuclear weapons complex. And we have a map here to show kind of where they all are. So a lot of you already know that you're near a university, but perhaps some of you don't know how many universities there are that you could be connected to. So we should have another poll, actually, the second poll here. If we could get that up, great. So yeah, so now that you can kind of see where all of these universities are that have links to nuclear weapons, if you kind of start seeing what's your personal connection to these universities? All right, just a couple more seconds to vote. So I see, yeah, if we could share the results, please. Great. So you can see, yeah, a lot of people are either students actually really directly connected to these universities, or they're near them, or they know someone. So that's great to see as well. I think we can do a lot of work here. So, oops. So those are the universities. What are these links that I keep talking about? For those who aren't familiar with the research that we've done, I want to just explain a little bit more what I'm talking about when I say these universities are involved in the nuclear weapons complex. So in our report, we looked at 4 different types of university involvement in the nuclear weapons complex. A lot of it is essentially links to US nuclear weapons laboratories, which conduct a lot of the research and design, as well as do some production of nuclear warheads in the United States. So we have kind of this one form of relationship is kind of an institutional partnership. Another one is really focused on research, joint research funding for often the research. Maybe it's not exactly about nuclear weapons, but it has implications for the US nuclear weapons arsenal. There's the pipeline. This is really advertised as being very positive on a lot of laboratory university websites. We're creating jobs for the next generation to be working on weapons of mass destruction. And then kind of the most clear link is direct management, where there are a few universities that are actually directly overseeing these laboratories that are doing research and working for the production of nuclear weapons. So just as one example, I know we had at least one person who's in the Boston area. I thought I'd pull out MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, to give some kind of what these links look like in practice at one of the universities identified. And so MIT is connected in a number of ways to laboratories that work on nuclear weapons in the US through some of its own laboratories that get contracts from the Department of Defense that are related to nuclear weapons. MIT has a special relationship with Draper Lab, which used to be a part of MIT. I think it's a really great example to show what activism can do since it became independent after protests. But this lab is still doing work related to nuclear weapons. And MIT has some ties to it. And as well as one of these kind of other institutional partnerships is this campus executive program that Sandia National Labs has with a lot of universities about building connections, research collaboration, and again, this kind of pipeline of workers to work on nuclear weapons. So, a lot of times we get this question, we talk about links with nuclear weapons laboratories, talking about Los Alamos National Laboratory, Sandia National Laboratory, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. And these laboratories do more things than work on nuclear weapons. And this is often, an excuse we hear, especially from a bit defensively from universities that have these ties. They say, oh, well, they're also doing other important scientific work. And sure, that's true. But at the same time, it's important to keep in mind where actually most of the money that these laboratories are getting is spent. And by and large, it is for nuclear weapons work. And so, even if this proportion wasn't so high, I think you still don't want your university to have any link to an institution that's contributing in any way to weapons of mass destruction. But this, I think, is just important context. Just to chat, have I gotten any questions in the chat so far? Okay, nothing yet. Feel free to kind of jump in if you have anything here. Just to kind of put this a bit in context as well with the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which entered into force earlier this year. it bans a lot of these activities that universities are engaging in developing, producing nuclear weapons. Since the US has not ratified, has not become a state party to the treaty, the United States is not bound legally by these obligations. But at the same time, it's really a new international standard, and universities really shouldn't be engaging in activities that have been banned under international law. So I think it's another kind of, this is a good time to really be working on this activism, and the entering the force of the TPNW, I think, is a compelling reason for universities to be changing their behavior. So what can we do? I've put kind of a number of different actions that we can be doing to call on universities to end nuclear weapons work. And I just wanted to do another poll here. Actually, it's going to be poll number 4. If we could put that one up. So I know, yeah, it's a small group, and I know there are some really experienced activists among us. So I just wanted to ask about if you could kind of share your own experience doing any of these activities, and then maybe we can pick this up in the discussion. Got a few more people left to vote here. Okay, great. If we could share the results. So this is really cool to see the experience we have here in organizing protests, holding events, meeting with officials, social media, and writing op-eds. Maybe not as many here have done that, but even still some experience. And I think, yeah, maybe when we get, after we've heard from Sejani or in the questions a bit after, as we can hear from others about their experience doing these different activities and tips from others. But essentially, these are a number of ways that you can kind of spread the word. A lot of people don't really know about these links. Even if they go to the university, they don't know what their university is doing, how it's involved. And there's a number of ways to do that, whether it's an op-ed in a student newspaper, actually engaging on social media, or even doing kind of a private meeting with university officials. We've done a little bit of this, and I'm happy to talk about that too in kind of Q&A. Of course, holding an event is really great. Difficult these days. Maybe kind of using more digital formats is better, but I think also really great to think about how to partner with other kind of interested organizations, and certainly with like supportive faculty members, maybe from Peace and Justice Studies departments, what have you, to kind of gain a bit more traction, particularly if you're near a university, you're not a student, but even if, yeah, you're a student, good to work with others. And then, of course, staging a protest. We have some posters and flyers that we put together that we can share, kind of tailored to your university. And we can provide some tips based on previous actions. So here are a couple examples of letters to the editor and student newspapers that went out after the report was released, including at Johns Hopkins. There was a great actual letter from the editorial board in the student paper, and a piece by a student at the University of California, Santa Barbara. On social media, I know it can be intimidating sometimes, and to kind of know where to start. And so one thing that we did when we released the report was put together an Excel sheet with the Twitter handles and Instagram handles and Facebook pages for all of the nearly 50 universities implicated in the report. And I just put the link to that page here on the slide. Here are some examples of actions at universities that we saw on the 22nd of January when the treaty entered into force. Very exciting to see a lot of great work there, lots of banners and posters. And then just lastly, I wanted to say, a lot of what I've been talking about is who are the universities that we know are linked to the nuclear weapons complex, and what can you do about them? But if you're not linked to any of those universities, I know a lot of you are, but in case you're not, or you're a student at another university, a student at another university, there's still a lot of work that you can do. One is you can still spread the word about this report and this research to students at other universities, or challenge universities on social media. You can also investigate a little bit more what's going on at your university. When we were doing the research, there was a lot of classified information, and universities might not be kind of giving you the full story of all of the funding they're receiving. There's still a lot of classified research at universities. And so I think it's important for students to demand that they know what's happening at their university. And, just kind of a third option is just to really work with your university community to support the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which, bans all of these activities. And we're seeing just, global support even in countries that have not joined the treaty to kind of speak up and get their country to join. So I will, let's see. I'm just gonna see if there's, I will end it there and see if we have time for a couple questions before turning it over to Sajani.
Thank you. I really appreciate this research. This is wonderful. I was, for over 13 years, I was part of a vigil at the University of California, and periodically we would also go to Livermore Lab. But the university faculty senate has voted at least once, I think more than once, stating that the making of nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction by the university is a violation of their mission statement. It's never been acted on further, but I'm just wondering, now we have an opportunity to ask them to vote positively on this TPNW initiative, and just wondered about how much is this being pursued at other universities. I saw your wonderful spreadsheet, so maybe I can just pursue that later on my own. But thank you for doing this.
Yeah, that's great. So you're asking how much are we asking universities to consider if this work is a violation of their mission statement?
Yes, or yeah. The essential reasons for the university to be educating the public for the future of our children.
Yeah. And do you live around the University of California, or do you have a?
I'm a graduate of UC Davis, and attended the Graduate Theological Union, which is a consortium of seminaries north of Berkeley, actually third generation Cal grad. So the university has been very much part of our family life and my own personal life. I'm grateful for the education, but this has been extremely lamentable. And this vigil continues, and I'm just kind of looking for ways in which we might use this TPNW initiative to further this cause of getting the university out. I don't mean to take your time, but one of the questions that comes up is, well, the university can at least have some mitigating effect on the research if it retains these contracts. Otherwise, the federal government would go to some other research outfit to oversee it that would not have the accountability that the university is supposed to have. It seems like a weak argument, but it is an argument. And then people say, well, then why don't you pursue it federally in terms of policy, which is what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, you clearly, I think you're more of an expert on the situation on the ground there. And it's great to have you participating here, and certainly would be would be interested to know also if others, maybe you can kind of put in the chat if there are other people connected to the University of California here who want to connect. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of momentum in California, and part of what we want to do with this university report is really link a lot of the action that we're seeing in other parts of the US, whether it's, you know, resolutions being passed by city councils, members of Congress or local councils supporting the TPNW with with university action. And so, you know, for example, there were a number of representatives around, I think, in Maryland, DC area, who wrote an op-ed about wanting to kind of reduce nuclear dangers. And we reached out and asked if they knew about like Johns Hopkins links to nuclear weapons. And they were really interested and wanted to hear more and kind of speak out about that. So I think maybe one, I guess, new angle to bring to it is the TPNW and is all of these different actors across the country that have committed to work to get the country to join the treaty. And what we're saying now is that, okay, the US hasn't joined the treaty, but these activities are banned under international law. And at least while the US works to join the treaty, we should be trying to curtail any activities that are banned under the treaty to bring the US kind of closer to compliance. And any kind of institution has a role to play there. And I'll talk more about this in the workshop I'm working on after this. But I think, you know, I can't necessarily completely answer your question, but I think, you know, it could be useful to push the dialogue a bit further by bringing in maybe some of the new actors who are interested in promoting the treaty in the US. That's one thing. And then I'm conscious of not wanting to step on Sejani's time, but maybe I'll just take one more question and then we can have more of a discussion.
Thank you.
Yes, there's a question for you from Eustace. Would you please read your question?
Yeah, thanks Alicia for the great presentation. And really quick, my question was if you could say a few more words about strategies for how you find out where schools are investing their money and whether they are involved in companies that are building nuclear weapons. And maybe that's not an easy question to answer, but would just love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And unfortunately, it's something we didn't get around to including in this initial report, was looking at investments. I think it's something that I do want to do kind of in a follow-up report in terms of how to find out what the links are. You know, you can look at Don't Bank on the Bombs website to see all the companies that are involved in nuclear weapons. And it's a lot of really big companies that a lot of financial institutions are investing in. And you can, you know, if you're able to find out kind of your university investments portfolio, you can check that against the companies. But in terms of exactly how to do that, I haven't started that research myself. It might be a good idea to, you know, if you're interested in kind of watching Susie Snyder's workshop, which I think is happening right now, on divestment, or following up with her, because she looks at a lot of different investments, including like pension funds for states and stuff. And so she would probably be the best initial resource on that. But yeah, no, I think it's a great question and I'd like to do more research on that. That's all I can say for now. Great. All right. Well, I would, love to now turn it over to Sejani to give you a student perspective and share some of her experience.
Hi, everyone. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Awesome. So my name is Sejani Patel. I am a junior at Fordham University studying political science and international studies, as Christian mentioned, and I'm doing a minor in Italian. I've been interning with NAPF, which is the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, for over a year now. And a little bit about my experience at NAPF. Going in, because it was an internship, I kind of assumed I'd be doing clerical work or getting coffee. But actually being able to be involved in disarmament advocacy is such a, great experience. And I've been able to give statements like this on youth involvement and what my perspective as a young person is on disarmament, and which is something that's so overlooked because I feel like a lot of young people, even students themselves, feel like they're not qualified enough to speak on the issue, at least not on a global platform like this. But NAPF, so many, and ICANN and so many other organizations have been allowing young people to do that. And I think that's so great. So my first day at NAPF, I attended the city council meeting on divesting the city public pension from the companies that were investing in nuclear weapons. And the two resolutions that came out of that were, one, called for the city comptroller to divest from nuclear weapons manufacturers and public employees pension funds. And then the second would create a committee to officially designate New York as a city that does not produce or store nuclear weapons, also known as a nuclear-free zone. So being thrown in headfirst on the first day was actually really encouraging. And I knew that I was going to be able to actually make an impact with my time at NAPF. It also helped me realize that disarmament is truly an issue of institutions financially supporting the development of nuclear weapons and not just of nuclear weapons existing in the first place. A big part of youth involvement is lack of education and awareness. Most young people learn little to nothing about nuclear weapons and how they're still a threat of the present in school. Even as a political science major and international studies major that has taken many classes in humanitarian studies and covered topics such as global security, the threat of nuclear weapons, as well as its significance to environmental factors, is rarely discussed. Additionally, many students don't realize how institutions they are a part of could be funding and contributing to the production of nuclear weapons. This is why it's so important to engage students and give them ways to advocate for transparency with their universities. This is where social media is a very powerful tool. Engaging young people on disarmament is hard because there's so many issues that are being thrown at us all the time, and it can be overwhelming. And it definitely doesn't help when the media frames other issues as more important than disarmament, but social media can be used as a platform not only to inform students about what their institutions and what schools that are known for investing in nuclear weapons are doing, but it can also help students spread the word to their peers and express their opinions towards the university's investment. But a good way to combat the lack of participation is to create infographics and posts that are informational, but also digestible, especially when discussing money and the cost of nuclear weapons versus healthcare costs. Using things such as infographics and the curriculum and toolkit that was created by Reverse the Trend can be really helpful. NAPF has also started a social media project called Trendy Tuesdays, where we post a quick fact or infographic on our story, and it keeps people involved on a regular basis without feeling overwhelmed. Plus, these tidbits are very inviting for people to repost them on their stories so more people can see them on a wide scale view. Showing the intersectionality of disarmament is also a huge way to get people to want to be involved, because right now a lot of people see disarmament as a single field issue, when in reality it affects many aspects of society, such as racial and economic injustice, environmental impacts, the global exploitation of groups that deal with the effects of nuclear testing, etc. Along with this, seeing how diverse the impacts of nuclear weapons are will encourage people to further advocate for divestment and decrease their university's contribution to these issues. When it comes to contacting students, I would say the main way to do this is through student clubs. So humanitarian students organizations, environmental clubs, and you can talk to these clubs to propose events that are pointing out issues such as transparency and divestment through the clubs. This way you can reach the students in a more organized way, and they already have a direct link. Usually they have like a list of students that attend their events and things like that. Another great idea is you can contact professors and academic departments to either host an event through your organization and have guest speakers, or again, like I mentioned, through the clubs, and you can contact professors to advertise it to their students as an extra credit opportunity. So students can attend these events, maybe write like a 1 or 2 page response summary on that. And not only will it motivate people to want to learn about nuclear weapons, it will also kind of feel like a double benefit type of thing. So contacting student-ran university publications such as newspaper is a great way to expose the university practices and create widespread awareness about the university spending. This is an important route to consider because students could be hesitant about speaking out against the university, but school newspapers are known for being an organized and large platform for critiquing university practices. I'm a part of the Fordham Observer, and we have many editorials about the actions of the university and how it can negatively affect students. Plus, school newspapers have excellent resources when it comes to conducting research, access to editors, and this can create a well-crafted statement to well-crafted statement of opposition to urge for divestment. Young people are starting to realize why it's so important to get involved in politics and world structures, so we should take this as an opportunity to keep them informed and allow them to use their power for more transparency between universities and students. Some challenges you may face is getting people to want to be involved in the first place, and I would recommend following popular accounts from universities such as club social media pages or other popular accounts that the university has, such as I know some academic departments also have a lot of pages on social media, and then following through their followers, et cetera, kind of getting into outreach, not on the individual level, but kind of on the individual level. Also, you can partner with clubs to promote your posts, especially if it meets the interests of the club. So they can post things that your organization posts on Instagram on their stories and things like that. I know we usually get students to want to check out what you guys are doing. So another thing you might face is getting people to stay interested. And the biggest recommendation that I have for this is making posts that spark discussion. If people feel like they can actively get involved with this advocacy, they're going to want to be more engaged in the conversation. The third thing you might face is backlash from the university admin itself. This is important because a lot of the times universities are kind of skittish when it comes to issues such as disarmament because they don't want to portray a certain political image publicly. And the biggest thing that I would say to kind of get around this is to contact your university student government if you do face backlash from admin. This is because I'm a part of the student government at Fordham. And so we had a club that was Students for the Justice in Palestine trying to become an organization at Fordham, and admin kind of shut them down at first, even though we had approved them as a club. And so since the student governments are the ones that are responsible for allocating budgets to clubs, we talked to admin, we sat down, had a conversation with them, expressed the importance of allowing students to be able to express their beliefs, even if it doesn't match the image that the university or the university's donors have, and kind of really express that you can't shut these students down just because it doesn't fit the cookie cutter image that you want. And we were able to have it pass through, so now it's an official club. An example of a successful event about nuclear disarmament and divestments that NAPF has held is in 2019, NAPF with co-sponsors IPPNW and PAX held an event where they had a wide range of guest speakers, and they provided a well-rounded informational seminar type thing to a group of students to kind of make them feel empowered, especially since a lot of students can be skeptical due to the shadow of bureaucracy and complex like elitist institutions and things like that. A great example of how to get people want to be involved on the individual level was a speaker, Susie Snyder. Part of her explanation, she encouraged students to contact their banks through the online help feature and ask their banks whether they invest in nuclear weapons. And this got students excited for being able to, become a part of the conversation as an individual instead of having to either go through an organization or kind of wait around until they feel qualified enough to actually participate in things. So this is a big way that you can kind of encourage students to feel more empowered and feel like they do have a power in this world. Because I as a student, I will tell you now, before I started interning at NAPF, I really thought that at least while I was in university, my impact that I was going to have on the world was going to be fairly small. So translating that into online events can be difficult, especially because we all have that Zoom fatigue right now. It is important to keep people engaged and having them be involved, similar to this event, having discussions, allowing people to comment in the chat, discuss with each other, ask questions, things like that. Again, having the audience evaluate their own lives and seeing which institutions invest in nuclear weapons is a great way to convey how large the issue really is and how it's right under their noses. Plus, if this happens on a wider scale, it could lead to companies rethinking where they invest and how they will impact their consumer satisfaction and profitability. An example of an online event that NAPF did was we had an international dialogue between Nagasaki youth and American youth about disarmament and their perspectives. Divestment is not just an American concern. There's universities internationally that are contributing to the issue. And I feel like opening up that dialogue to global youth can be a great way to ensure a more impactful response. So while we are going through challenging times, youth involvement and urging people to take a stand against institutions to encourage divestment is still something that can and should be done. Students are the backbone of our future, and bridging the gap between generations will mean a smoother transition for our next generation of leaders and advocates.
Thank you so much, Sanjani. It was really, fantastic presentation. Now, I noticed that we have a question from Grant. Grant, would you like to read your question?
Thank you. That was a very wonderful presentation. Very informative and inspiring to me. What comes up for me often in this, it's similar to defunding the police, is as well as deconstructing violent alternatives that only harm the people that we're supposed to be protecting or serving. What about positive alternatives to developing a culture of peace, looking at nonviolence much more comprehensively than simply in public protest, as ways in which we might continue to provide and look at the security of any community rather than through violence.
Sanjani,
does that make sense? I mean, I know there's departments of peace at various universities. There's one at UC Berkeley, but how much is that connected to also divesting and ending nuclear weapons research at universities?
I think one of the biggest ways to encourage the divestment and actually being able to have that be impactful, because I know there's a lot of universities that have like committees and things like that encourage those types of issues. But I think the biggest thing would be trying to get students to actually show that they care about where the university spends their money, because the money that the university are spending a lot of times is the tuition that the students pay. Sometimes it's also from donors and things like that, but also helping students take control over what they contribute to the university again. I think that would be the biggest way to positively kind of streamline that.
Thank you.
Alicia, would you like to add?
Yeah, I realize we're coming very short on time here. There's just one other thing I wanted to make sure we do is just if people are living near universities or working on universities or students at universities, and they want to just share like which university they're near or they want to engage with in the chat, just to see if others are also in the same area or want to kind of work together after this workshop, or if anybody wants to kind of share emails and connect with other people. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time for interactive discussion now, but I think we hope that this can kind of kickstart a bit of action. And I see there's a request for Sajani to send your email. I'm also happy to just share mine here, and happy to kind of talk more with anybody here. Or kind of organize any follow-up meetings to continue this work.
Yes, and I'm going to also post our Gmail account if you would like to reach Sanjani. So just give me 1 second.
Cool, great. So we've got someone at Northwestern, University of Arizona. I know we've got youth organizing in the Boston area at a number of universities. Yeah, this is really great. Really great to hear from you all. And I do hope that this is kind of more of the beginning than the end. Cool. And yes, we have some international students. Great to hear some points on that. So I see we're at time. It's great to see all your interest in the report and in taking action and experience in doing that. I hope this was helpful to get started on that, and that we can kind of continue to be in touch and work together on this. Sajani, do you have any final concluding remarks?
No, I think we both kind of covered everything. I think honestly, like I said, if you guys have any other questions about the logistics of like getting in contact with clubs and things like that, feel free to email me because I'm fairly involved with university logistics. So
great. And Christian, anything else you wanted to say to wrap things up?
I think this was overall a fantastic workshop, from hearing about the ICANN University report and then hearing from a young person who's really engaged in this field. So thank you everyone for joining us for today's workshop, and let's stay in touch.
Great. All right, everyone, take a break for the next workshop, and thanks for joining.